Hey there, 6th grade. We're going to continue with percents in this next video by learning how to estimate with percents. So if you'll read this scenario I have at the top of the page, it says a hairdryer at Lester's Discount Haven costs $14.99. Carissa's Corner is offering the same hairdryer at 20% off the regular price of $19.99. So to find out which store is offering the better deal, we can estimate with those percents. So if you look at the table below, we'll come back to this problem in a little bit, you'll see some common percent to fraction conversions here. I need you to have these conversions memorized, please. There's 6 of them, and these are really common ones that will make your life a lot easier when you're trying to figure out percents off when using estimation. So we're going to use those conversions in the table to help us with example 1 here. It says use a fraction to estimate 48% of 79. So we're going to start off by knowing that hopefully 48% is close to 50%. And 79 is close to 80. So I'm going to estimate this problem by rounding 48% up to 50% and 79 up to 80. So now we're going to use our fraction conversions, and based on the table we see that 50% is equivalent to the fraction 1/2. So this is going to be 1/2 times 80. Remember that word of typically means multiply when we're doing computation problems, so this is 1/2 times 80, which would be approximately 40. So we would say that 48% of 79 is approximately or about 40. Okay, so now we'll apply that to that scenario we had at the top. We had a hairdryer that was being offered at 20% off at one store, and then the same hairdryer that cost $14.99 at the other store, and we're trying to figure out which store has the better deal. So let's estimate. 20% off, $19.99. Well, I can keep 20% the same. $19.99 is pretty close to $20. So we're going to figure out 20% of $20. Going back to our table, 20%, its fraction equivalent is 1/5. So I'm going to change 20% to 1/5 and take 1/5 times 20. 1/5 times 20 is going to give me 4. And so that means the discount at our first store, Carissa's Corner, is about $4. Okay, that's not the price we're paying, that's the discounted price. That's the amount they're deducting from the original price. So now we need to use subtraction. And since the original price was $20, if we take a $4 discount, we're left with approximately $16. So at our first store, Carissa's Corner, the price is $16. At our second store, Lester's, the price is $14.99. Which is the better deal? Well, that would be Lester's Discount Haven. Okay, even with the 20% off of the first store, his price is still the better deal. Okay, going to the back side, another way to estimate percents is to find either 1% or 10% of a number. And the reason those 2% are really easy is because they just involve moving the decimal point in your original number. So if I wanted to find 1% of 45, for instance, well, we know the decimal point on 45 is just to the right of 5. To find 1% of that, we take the decimal point and we move it 2 places to the left. So 1% of 45 would be equivalent to the decimal 0.45. 10% of 45, we're going to move the decimal to the left, but we would only move it 1 place to the left. So 10% of 45 is equivalent to 4.5. So using those two rules there, we're going to estimate percents in examples 3 and 4 using the 1% and the 10% rules. So for number 3, it asks us to find 3% of 59. So the first thing I'm going to do is round 59 up to 60. So I'm going to try finding 3% of 60. So to find this, what I can do is I can first calculate 1% of 60. So 1% of 60 I could find by taking the decimal point on 60 and moving it 2 places to the left. And so that would give me the decimal 0.6. So now that I've figured out what 1% of 60 is, 3% of 60 would just involve taking this value, 0.6, and multiplying it by 3. Okay, 3% of 60 would be triple the amount of 1% of 60. So I'm going to take 3 times 0.6, and 3 times 0.6 gives me 1.8. So that means that our original problem, 3% of 59, remember we're estimating here, is approximately 1.8. Okay, number 4 asks us to find 18% of 45. So 18% is pretty close to 20%, so I'm going to estimate 18% by rounding it up to 20%. And so now I'm going to calculate 20% of 45. Well, to do that, I can start out by finding 10% of 45. 10% of 45 I would find by taking my decimal and moving it just 1 place to the left. 10% of 45 is going to be equivalent to 4.5. So that means that 20% of 45 I would find by taking 2 times 4.5. Okay, 20% is 10% doubled, so 2 times 4.5, and that would give me 9.0, or just 9. So that means that 18% of 45 is approximately 9. Okay, one more example, number 5. This one says that Eric and Selena spent $25.85 for their meals at a restaurant, and the problem wants to know about how much money they should leave for a 15% tip. So that's a pretty common problem in the real world, is having to calculate tip. So let's take our problem and write out what it wants us to find. It wants us to find, again, 15% of $25.85. Well, $25.85 is pretty close to $26, so I'm going to round this up to the nearest dollar, 26. And now I'm going to find 15% of $26. 15% is equivalent to 10% plus 5%. So one thing I can do to help me with this problem is I can split 15% into this sum, 10% plus 5%, and then I can find each of these percentages separately. So let's start out by finding 10% of $26. So 10% of 26 I'm going to find by taking my decimal point and moving it 1 place to the left. And so for this problem, that would be 2.6. 5% of 26, because 5 is half of 10, I can find that by taking 10%, which was 2.6, and dividing it by 2. Okay. And when I divide 2.6 by 2, I get 1.3. So 15% of 26 is going to be found by taking 10%, which was 2.6, and adding it to 5%, which was 1.3. And when I do that, I get 3.9. So that means that Eric and Selena, for their tip, should leave approximately $3.90. Okay, if you had any questions over this video, make sure you have those written down for the next time. And until then, have a nice day. You're all wonderful people.